Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is that you're watching this pod show. I want to welcome you and thank you for spending some time with us. And we've got a great episode for you. Now, you've heard a lot of different perspectives of the film business and many different people. And today I wanted to do something a little different. I have a friend of mine who is someone in a section of film that we have not actually covered or talked much about. Can we welcome Whitney Delaney to the show? we don't have applause to add into it. So, you got to imagine that, there's a
I can feel it. I can feel
roaring.
The stadium. I can feel it. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
I'm doing great. You feeling great?
I'm feeling amazing. What about you?
I'm feeling amazing. I'm happy to be here with you. I'm happy
to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Most definitely. Even though she doesn't do public conversations too much. So this is special. Somehow convinced her to come get on camera.
I really did.
Because
I'm behind the scenes for a reason.
Yeah, don't be fooled. She looks like she would be in front of the camera.
Oh gosh.
But she actually works behind the camera. Can you please tell our audience, what do you do for a living and have done in the film business?
So I have been a costumer in film and television for 12 years now. Costumer is basically the broad sense. The thing that's great about the costume department in film is that there are so many different positions you can have within the department.
Right.
So, I've got some friends who they've been age or dyers, they've sewn, they do it all. So I usually will just call myself a costumer. Well, that was what I did most of the time. The last 5 years I've been a costume buyer, which basically the costume designer is our head and she has a vision. And basically it's my job, her, and we usually will have an ACD, assistant costume designer. Depending on the show, we'll have a couple. And my job as a buyer is for them to tell me kind of the look of the show, the character vibe, color palettes. And my job is to go out and to find that. And, it's not as easy. A lot of people are like, oh, you go shop all day. It's like, it's like, so if you ever
you get a card and you get to go ball out.
Yeah. Every time I'm at a store and it's like $10,000, they're like, oh, this is great. It's other people's money. It's like, no. It's like, because it's
and
like.
half the shit's getting returned.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we gotta, I've got to buy, you've got to buy so many multiples, because when you watch a movie, the one take that you see is not the one time it happened.
Right. We've got like
photo,
4 or 5 of the same outfit.
Photo doubles, stunt doubles. So I've been doing that probably about the last 5 years, because the first half of my career from 2011 to 2019, I guess. I've been on set and I'm a fitter as well, which I really like, period, which is anything historic. That's kind of my specialty. I really, really hone in on picking project.
That's not easy.
It's not easy at all. It's really, really hard. Yeah. I've done a couple shows where I've had to be a buyer and buy modern stuff that can pass for period because we need the multiples. And that is really not easy. But I like the challenge. But before that, when I was just, on-set costumer, and not just, that's a very intense job. You're looking for continuity. You're making sure,
Well, before we get deep into that.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I definitely, because there's so many, I'm glad you were talking about that stuff because it's real interesting. You guys will delve into the different moving parts of that department because you'll be blown away how much it's involved just for the clothes we actors wear in movies.
So long story short, right now I'm a costume buyer. I've been a costume buyer for 5 years, but a costumer for 12.
Okay, so let's take us back. Let's go all the way back.
Oh, God.
Way back. You know what I mean? This show is about the journey, so we got to find out where this journey begins. First of all, what made Whitney Delaney, and then we'll go into what sparked or led you into the field that you're currently in. So where are you from originally?
I am from Columbus, Ohio.
No judgment.
I know you had a problem when I said something earlier.
I'm just giving her.
Are you from Michigan?
Anybody? No, no.
Yeah.
Anyone that's from Ohio, I'm just like, oh, really?
Why?
Ohio's just one of those places where
whatever.
it's like,
Well,
you
know
can give
what?
people a hard time for being there. Not that, shout out to Ohio. Like,
Shout out
nothing's
to
wrong with
Ohio.
it.
Go Bucks.
It's just an easy target.
Go Bucks. But I'm at that weird point where I've lived in the South, I'm getting there. I'm always going to be from Ohio. I'm Ohio Buckeyes girl through and through. But it is weird when you get to that point where you've lived somewhere long enough to where it's like, I've lived in the South as long as I lived in Ohio.
Yeah,
so.
no, I know the feeling.
Yeah, where are you from?
So-
I literally would think Michigan the way you're acting about Ohio.
No, I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, Fort Bragg.
Okay.
So Columbus, Ohio. How long were you in Columbus, Ohio?
I was in Columbus for 18 years.
18. Okay, so that's a good stretch of time. Oh, great. So we get to find about young Whitney, young child Whitney. How was growing up in Columbus, Ohio, and how was home life?
Home life was great.
You're like from the suburbs, trailer parks, high rises, grew up in a mansion.
No, grew up in my house. Literally, kind of looks like the Brady Bunch house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it kind of does. It's like really weird shape, and the neighborhood that I grew up in as a kid, it was that kind of like Leave It to Beaver type. It was like really super suburban. I had a great childhood.
Oh, good.
Not to say that there weren't,
Of course.
but it was a great neighborhood to grow up in. It started to change a lot. The neighborhood started to change a lot. And then the school that our middle school was supposed to, after you went to the elementary school that was in the neighborhood that I went to, or that I grew up in, after you were done there, you went to this other school. I won't say its name, but you went to this other.
Bad, huh?
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I don't
The school that shall remain nameless.
Yeah, I won't say its name. You know who you are if you're from Columbus.
But it's in Columbus, Ohio.
What middle school that is? My mom was a single mom, amazing, unbelievable woman. Worked really hard to.
Were you a good kid, or were you like bad,
I was a
mischievous?
great kid. What kind of question is that? I was a really good kid. I was I was really, really quiet.
You?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
I was super quiet, kind of shy, really introverted. I used to just read all the time. The arts have been a big part of my life. I feel like since I was little.
So you're a lover of art.
I'm a huge lover of art.
Well, I guess you kind of got to be to end up doing what you're doing.
Yeah. I think you do, but
Definitely.
But from what
you got to be a creative.
But the way that it's going now, it's kind of just like a lot of people are just like, oh, that seems like a cool job, or might make money. Like I don't know. That's just what I've seen from my personal thing. But I believe that you have to be a lover, like passionate.
So you were a quiet kid who was a lover of the arts.
Yeah.
And went to an alternative school.
No, I went to.
No, I'm kidding.
I wanted to. I'm like, where is the art school? My mom's like, there's not one here. You're going to Liberty.
No, I'm talking about the school for bad kids.
Oh God, the one that I won't say.
With the bars on the window, yeah.
So yeah, that was the next path, was to go to that school.
Did you play sports or anything in school?
Seemed
like you would be an athlete, or at least a cheerleader.
I was a cheerleader.
Oh, of course.
How
long did you cheer?
Not long. 2 years. I cheered for 2 years, and then I started a dance. Okay. So I went to dance after that.
I feel like you're one of those girls, like you had the look to cheer, but not really the attitude.
I was just not what you're thinking that I was then. But my mom was both my parents are great athletes. My mom was an amazing softball player. And so when I was in like second or third grade, she put me into softball, and I always wanted to, you know. And I was horrible, but I loved how the uniform looked.
Were you athletic at all though? Like, were you physically like, you know?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
I mean, not really.
Were you clumsy and like had bad
I
knees?
won sudden death in gym class. That's my claim to fame. I think I was like just telling my friends about it at the bar last weekend, actually. I mean, it wasn't clumsy, but I wasn't really into it.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the kind of person that if I'm into it, I can do anything, even if it's going to take a lot of work. But
so, where was your heart at that time? Were you painting stuff, drawing? What was your passion?
I was writing a lot, actually.
Oh, you're a writer?
Actually, I was writing. I mean, I wouldn't say that now so much. You know, you get older and you don't go back to those hobbies. But I was writing a lot. I used to write a ton.
I left it for a while. I used to write short stories.
Yeah.
And I actually got really great grades, won some contests.
Me too.
And then had years where I stopped.
Yeah.
And then picked it back up when I started screenwriting.
Yeah.
And then ended up that's became part of my living.
Right. Yeah. Like I won this poem, or I won this contest for this like poem I wrote in high school, and
so did I. Reader's Digest.
Oh, we're taking it back.
Yeah. My English teacher forced me to do it. I didn't want to.
I didn't want to either. And you would think that I would have like continued on with that, but I don't know, kind of let it go by the wayside. But I've always been into clothing. I didn't know how I was going to wind up in, I thought it was fashion. I mean, I had like the paper dolls, and I used to always sketch.
So you were like a fashion icon in the making.
I was trying to be. I see the pictures now, and I'm like, you tried. You tried.
Yeah, we all start somewhere.
Yeah, and I still, I still can't draw,
And anytime I see you, it's like, whether online or the rare occasion I run into you out and about, you're always pretty fashionable, though.
Thank you.
Like, I've never seen you like, oh, she must be running Walmart or something. I don't think I've ever seen you on an off day. Like,
okay, let's keep.
I'm not around you every day either, but
let's keep it that way. I always think that though, because I remember like somebody saying, the day that you think that you're gonna run, now, don't give me. The day you think you're gonna not see anybody is the day that you see everybody.
Yeah, I've been there a million times.
Yeah, so, but
it's even worse when people want to take pictures with you.
I can't imagine. Like,
no,
I
haven't shaved in 4 days.
I'm actually her twin. I don't know who you're talking about.
So you're in high school. You cheerleaded for 2 years. Was that middle school or high school?
That was middle school. Okay, yeah, that was middle school into high school. So it was like 8th grade and then 9th grade.
What made you stop?
It just. At that point I was at a private school, and it just wasn't what I was into. I really enjoyed doing it, but again, it's just
you have a passion.
I didn't have a passion for it, and when I don't have a passion for something, and at that point I was like at that age where you don't really know what you want to do. I just know that I loved watching old movies. I loved just pouring through books, and art it's always went back to like the arts, whether it's music, movies. I would go to the library and I would just literally go to the library and like rent DVDs, get books, and just learn. I love to learn. Yeah, but not on paper.
Not on paper.
Not on paper. I mean, I don't think that people would have thought that I was. I still think I am.
I was a closet nerd.
Yeah. That's how I feel. Like
outside, I was like the cool jock.
Yeah, like.
But internally, I identified more with the nerds and with the
geeks. And that's kind of how I was, and like I think that's why I've always had such a wide variety of friends. My friend groups have always been all different sorts of people. I still kind of feel like I'm a nerd. I mean, I literally I love to learn.
Yeah.
Well,
as you get older, what I learned is like, oh, that's not being a nerd. That's just being intelligent, open-minded, lover of arts and stuff.
When you ask the question, like, I mean, on like I don't know, like outwardly, I wasn't like saying like, oh, I'm going home and I'm reading Shakespeare or whatever I was doing at the time. It was, when you're younger, you're trying to keep that facade up of whatever. And then once I got to my sophomore year, I went to this private school from about 6th grade until 10th grade. And then that's when I think that was a big part of why I didn't know really kind of what I wanted to do or really where, like the comfortability of being yourself.
Yeah.
And I just knew that I was missing out on so much. It was a small private school. They were super closed-minded. And I was just like, I have to try something else. I've got to go out on a limb here and just try something different. And
Is that where you moved to dance?
Yeah, but it took a minute to get there. But that was when, that sophomore year, I was just like, I started questioning things and they didn't like that. And and I was just like, I just feel like I'm missing out on a lot of experiences that I should be having right now. And the big high school that was right by where I lived had 2,000 people. So I went from a high school our high school had 200.
Oh, wow.
To 2,000. And
so you left the private school?
Yeah.
By choice?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I left because I was just like, I'm not learning.
How do you come to your mom and go, this school you're working hard to pay for, I don't want to be here?
It was hard. It was, it wasn't harder than telling her I was leaving, not going to fashion school. But it was just, I think she got it because that was I think she got it. My mom is really she was a young mom when she had me. And her biggest thing was the culture shock. I mean, I went from a private school where you couldn't do anything. I mean, I didn't drink.
But you shouldn't be drinking.
You shouldn't be when you're in middle school and high school. But I mean, reality, there were kids that
kids don't be drinking in high school and middle school.
Dare.
Even though y'all bad as hell and you probably do what you want,
But I mean, and I never had that desire. My desires were always like, we're learning a very specific thing here. There's no, there's no growth that's happening here. Yeah. And I just wanted to try something. And it was like, if that didn't work for a year, I was ready to go back. I could go back to the private school and, So
you move over into the public school. How was that first day?
It was...
From 200 to 2,000.
Oh, man. It was... Now, that's when my mom got overwhelmed because she had to go sign me up, before I got there. Yeah. And she was like, she left, and I think that's when she freaked out. Like, this is like a college. Just, again, just her things always being like so protective of, what is this? This is a culture shock. And it's the thing about being young, like that young that I miss is no fear. Because I wasn't afraid. I knew that I wanted to try something different, and if it didn't work, it didn't work. And I went back to the other place.
I mean, it's good you had that mindset at that age.
Yeah.
It's a very mature mindset.
Absolutely. I was like, if it doesn't work, I'll go back there. But I know that I'm missing out on, what it was driving past and there's like football, like, I just felt like I was missing out on the high school experience.
Yeah.
You're at a private school where you got to be 6 inches away from people. And,
oh, really?
Yeah. No, it was crazy. Like, yeah, like it was like 6 inches. We didn't have real dances. It was no offense to private schools at all. I had got an amazing education there.
Well, I bet it sounds like that's the only
But that's
thing
all
they
you got. Yeah,
in.
that's all you got. Like, I mean, literally, like 6-inch rule. Your skirt. We had to wear. It's Ohio. It would be below 0 temperatures. I had to wear a skirt to school every day.
Oh wow.
And it was just there was a lot of very radicalized things that were kind of being presented
So was it what you hoped it would be when
I
you
went
got
to
there?
private or public school?
When you moved to the public school, was it a shocker, like something you had to get used to?
It was a huge thing to get used to.
Or were you like, yes, this is what I'm talking about?
It was a huge thing to get used to.
Did you feel like, oh shit, what was I thinking?
I did. I did. Because when we get to, we had an orientation first. It was orientation, and you had to like go get your books and stuff. And the biggest thing, honestly, was besides the fact that I knew no one there. I knew no one. 0 people. And the school was massive. It's so big that it's in 3. It was building A, B, and C. There was 3 different buildings. And so I'm looking at my schedule and I'm like, how am I going to get to this class? It's an A building. We got 2 minutes to get. But the biggest thing, honestly, was the uniform. Because I was so used to wearing,
So this school was no uniforms?
Shirts. No. Okay. It was a total public school. So thinking of what to wear every day. But like
damn it, I need clothes.
I'm like, damn, I didn't think about this. And then being around people, we were like, they're openly talking about like partying and all this stuff where like, they had a music we couldn't listen to. It's, Yeah. So it was a huge culture shock. And at first it was like, wow, what the hell were you? Mostly also too, because I didn't know a soul. Like I didn't know anybody.
So you're like kind of just
So
alone.
I was just like, wait, I really came in here like not knowing anybody. I met another girl at the orientation who she was new to, and like we kind of clicked on that part and like became friends like based off that. But yeah, it was a lot at the beginning, and really probably that first few months it was a big culture shock, and it wasn't what I was expecting, I guess, but I didn't know what to expect. So
yeah. So you get in there. Now some time has gone by.
You're taking me back.
Yeah.
You're taking
all
me
the way back. Yeah. And so
this is like an Oprah interview.
Exactly. See, now you're getting it. She's getting it now. We get
I'm
deep.
Sorry, guys. I'm going back. I'm like, man.
So you get in there, and how's it going halfway through? Are you wilding out? Are you still the good girl?
Oh no, I'm still the good girl.
Okay, you getting good grades? Grades
yeah.
not suffering?
No, so it was great that, that school that I went to, it was a college, and this school, this private or this public school that I went to, they're an incredible school. Their standards, their grades it's amazing. It's a great school. But the private school, like you said, because there was nothing else they were offering, the private school was so, I was so far ahead. Wow. By the time that I got to the public school, and I didn't realize that. At first, kind of the classes were different. That was the other thing. I got to choose my classes. That's not how it was at the private school, So it was really cool because I got to choose like music appreciation, a lot of the nerdy things that I was never able to hone in on there. So it was easier in a sense of I didn't have to graduate. When I first got there my junior year, I needed a full government credit. I had a half one, and because of this, the private school, it didn't feel like it was like that much easier, but I did really well there. And I've always loved history. So the classes that I just needed like one extra credit were like classes that I actually loved. So I think that made it a little bit easier. And then by senior year, literally it was just like it was just
so like. So what year did you go into dance?
Dance was 11th grade. So that was right. I got to Gahanna. Shout out Gahanna Lincoln High School. I got there my junior year, and it took about 6 months to really feel.
Were you a dancer already, or like you just?
Janet Jackson in my bedroom.
breaking news. No, I'm just kidding.
But I always was interested in dancing.
So there was already an interest.
Yeah, I've always wanted to dance. I swear to anything that had to do with the arts. painting, dance, music. I cannot play an instrument to save my life. And I really blame the Save the Music thing in the 90s. We can maybe cut this part out. But because they used to say that, like, if you weren't good at math and science, you weren't going to be able to play an instrument. And I think that's something that just, like, always stuck with me. Yeah.
Because I played instruments, and I damn sure wasn't good at math.
I don't know. That's what they said to me, and I was just like...
my worst classes that I performed in.
And I was just like, oh, okay, I'm bad at math and science. I can't play an instrument. But, no, I've always, like, wanted to... I always was interested in dance. And, again, like... you know, some of my favorite icons.
Did you start becoming popular, or are you still kind of quiet?
Oh, yeah,
You became a social butterfly?
Yeah, probably about 6 months in. I started dancing at this dance studio that, again, I didn't know it at the time, was like, you were cool if you danced. There was 2 dance studios, and, you know, you were cool if you dance there. And I just wanted to I was into my I wanted to do something artsy, and I always wanted to dance, and just never had an opportunity. It wasn't where I used to go to school. Like, that didn't exist. You weren't allowed to dance. We didn't have dances. We had banquets. But I always... Sounds fun. Yeah, it was... but I've always...
Girl, you going to the banquet this weekend?
Oh, my God. So bad. It was like this horrible dinner. Oh, man, it was bad.
We're going to turn up at the banquet.
Oh, my God. I'm like, do not call this a prom. Do not call this homecoming. It is not. So, I mean, I started meeting more people through that. And I still was... quiet. I've just, contrary to popular belief, I am pretty introverted. Like, I don't really, I'm pretty quiet.
I'm like an extrovert.
Yeah.
Introvert. I mean, I'm extroverted when I need to be.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm around people, I'm not going to just sit here and not say anything. But I used to be like that. Growing up, I used to be like, we're in a room for like 20 people, and I'm just like, not saying a word. I think people thought I was a mute for like for 15 years. But my 11th grade year, I started to become a little bit more popular, just based off of like kind of like the activities that I was choosing. And then you start to meet people who are, and.
So then you fast forward, you go through 11th grade and 12th grade, and you graduate. I was 18, really popular by 12th grade. It sounded like me. Like, it was like 12th grade, I had made it. It was the man, got those other punks out of the way. They graduated and left. And now we took over.
This girl one time was like, I remember you in speech class. You never talked. Now you're dancing on a bar.
What a transition.
Right.
So you graduate and you're going off into life. Where do you go? What do you do?
So I was accepted into a few different schools. I really just, I knew I was going to go into fashion is what I thought I was going into. My senior year, we had this class called Career Passport, and it was basically you picked the job that you wanted to do, what your major was going to be in college.
That was a class?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fancy.
It was cool. That
we had
public
shit like that.
Gahanna Lincoln was amazing. I mean, we had
Meet the Army Recruiter.
Well, now they had those outside. They had like the Army was literally set up like outside. There was like 3 desks of the Army set outside. So it's like either you're going to go to school or you're going to come sign up with us.
Yeah. I'm from Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, so it was like...
And I'm not, though.
Like this was 9th grade, they're like, I'll see you in 3 years.
But this is just randomly in Ohio. There's like the Army set up in the school. We had this Career Passport class. And that's what was great about my senior year, because I didn't have that many credits. My junior year, I did all the credits I needed to. So it was kind of just like, do these other kind of other classes that were more like life type classes, but Career Passport I think was required. And so I had to shadow. So I knew I was going into fashion. I was going to fashion school to be a fashion merchandiser and a buyer. Fashion merchandising is the major. I was going to go into school to be a buyer. And so we had to you had to find somebody in that field and you had to shadow them for a day. That was a big part of your grade for that class. And there was this woman who owned this boutique, this really beautiful boutique. And I just, kind of walked in and just asked her, like, hey, do you mind, just kind of told her backstory. And she's like, this is crazy how this worked out, because she happened to be that next week she was doing her buying for her store. So she had to she was like, so if you're available next week, you can come with me and see how I buy for my store. And that was a huge thing, because it was great, because that's really when and that was such a great class, because it was really when I was able to see this is what I wanted to do. And so after I graduated, so I got accepted into, I didn't want to go to college. I was just be straight up. I didn't want to.
That damn private school.
I did it. It was just like,
I've had enough school for 2 lifetimes.
Yeah, no, it was just, I think that it's conducive to it's different for different people.
Yeah.
And but my mom really, that was a big thing for her, for me to go to college, because she wasn't able to. And, it was that thing of parents of that. And I was just, I'll go for you, but I'm going to go where I want to go and do what I want to do. Yeah. And so, but I always knew I had to leave Ohio. And so I had got accepted into like Akron and like a couple places in Ohio. I still went ahead and applied there, but I ended up getting accepted into this little fashion institute in Atlanta. And so I'm like, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go do this fashion program, and then I'm going to go be a buyer at Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's. My life's going to be great, and that's going to be it.
So did you go to Atlanta?
I went to Atlanta. I went to Atlanta, and as soon as I got to it, this is, mind you, Atlanta, the early 2000s.
That's when crunk was going on.
The best time to be in Atlanta. The golden days of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And
the crunk era.
Oh man.
Everybody was turned up.
Oh man, it was like you didn't have to go inside the club. The cars would be like lined, like it was amazing. And so anyways, so I spent that summer, like half that summer there, and I'm like, I had went the year before, and that's how I knew I kind of wanted to live in. That's how I found that school and how I wanted to live in Atlanta. Anyways, long story short, I'm there, and it's time to go to fashion school, and I was just like, I get there, and just like, this just isn't me. It's just not me.
Fashion school, or being in Atlanta, or being in school period?
Fashion school.
Okay.
Or not fashion school, just school. College was not ever for me, but I tried to force it.
Yeah.
I tried to do something that I thought someone else wanted.
Yeah.
And whenever in life you do that, I mean, it might work out for some people, but a lot of people I know have a lot of debt and for something they didn't want to do.
Yeah. My mom really wanted me to go real bad. And that was the only reason I considered it. And I only wanted to go if I was playing football. Right. And when that didn't work out anymore, it was like, I went to community college. Yeah. And just to be like, look, I tried it.
Yeah. I got down there. I went to I went to the first day, and I was just like I said last year, in Ohio, like at home, this wasn't for me. And it's crazy how life works, because I ended up doing not fashion, but I ended up doing exactly the same thing that I always wanted to do, just in a different way. Right. Because when you're supposed to do the thing that you are here for, like, I'm not saying I'm here to be, you know what I mean? But like when you have a certain route and a certain, like, not to get you deep, like a destiny that's for you, it's going to happen. Yeah. And it might be a different way, but I just realized that maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm actually doing what I always said I do. It's just, it's totally
every journey is different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, for some people, I think, I think it's great. Go get that major. But for me, when I'm not in it, I'm not going to do well.
Right. I'm the same way.
Yeah. Like I'm not going to succeed if I had went to that school. And so then,
So did you only go one day?
Yeah, one day.
You went one day. You didn't even give it the first week?
I went to the orientation and the day. I knew. I just knew.
Well, when you know, you know.
Well, I knew before I
but you had
got
to move
there.
down there, and
well, I was gonna always live in Atlanta. At that time, I was always.
So you were more so interested in living in Atlanta than being in the fashion school in Atlanta.
Well, the thing was I was going to go to college for my mom. And my thing was, if I'm going to go to college, I'm going to go to the city I want to go to, which is Atlanta.
So you usually let the fashion school be your motivating force to
but also I did want to go to I did think like, okay, this is fashion school. Like, you know what I mean? Like
until day one.
Yeah, well, until day one, and I get there and it was totally different than what they had presented. But that was
so you just withdraw everything and then you do what?
Had to tell my mom.
Yeah, how did that conversation go?
Horrible.
Because I know if I'm your parent, I'm like, you little bastard.
Terrible.
One day you couldn't get past one day.
No, because you couldn't listen to me when I said I didn't want to go. So, but we joke about it now because I don't know what that would have ended up being for me.
Yeah, and parents all have, and I also preach this to other people about your kids. Listen to them. That's one thing about my mother that I give her credit. She couldn't help me as much as she wanted to early on.
Right.
But same thing, like we laugh about it now because she says like, I was just like fostering your talents,
yeah,
of what you were saying that you wanted to do. But I didn't really I thought you were just a kid saying this.
And I think that
but over time, as it was like, you're still on it. Like, and then she started realizing, oh, you're serious.
Yeah.
So instead of dissuading me to, well, you need to do something more practical. She was like, she leaned into it. Like,
I will say that's one thing about my parents, my mom specifically, is if I told her today I wanted to run for president, let's go. Let's go. She's always been supportive. Now that situation took a minute. Yeah. Because
you got to go. That is an adult, and I can't. She needs to also walk her path.
Yeah.
And it's smart of her to like quickly go.
Well, okay. What happened was I had a best friend who his parents were, he comes from a really good family, and his parents were very like, did everything by the book. Like they've got like triple degrees and like, really great jobs and all the stuff on paper. Yeah, all the stuff on paper. All that stuff. So she contacted when I called him. I was like, listen, I can't go. I can't do this. I can't do it because if I'm not going to do it 100, I'm not doing it. Yeah. Sorry. I'm just, if I can't commit 100, and that was not fashion, that was not what they told me it was going to be at all. So she called him thinking that he was going to kind of, encourage me or encourage her of like to change my mind. And he said, Dee Dee, not everybody has to take the same path. And Whitney's not a girl that has to she's going to make her way. And she does. I swear to God, this is what he told, she tells me that he told her. And he said, she doesn't need to do that. Like I'm not concerned about her at all. And he's like and that's why she called him. Because he's like such a, you do for his kid, like you do this and this and this and this and this. And that made her feel better. I think to hear from someone else that it wasn't like, because I have had.
You sound like from even like in middle school up and through high school, like you had a really good head on your shoulders.
I did. I actually did. I was a really good kid. Any decision that I was making, like something like that, especially, that was just like something that was innately within me, like it wasn't just like, oh, I I can't do this. Like, one day, but that one day you can be in a place for an hour and know that it's not the place for you.
Yeah. Especially when you, like you said, you're very aware of what it is you want to do, or at least the direction you want to go. Cause like me, the area I came from, and I didn't know anybody. I had no way of knowing how to get into the film business.
And then
but I knew, like,
that it was going to happen.
What do you want to be? I know what I'm going to be.
Yeah.
Like, you can ask anybody from me being a kid. They're like, no, that dude has said what he was going to be all these years.
Right.
And then went and did it.
Exactly.
And it sounds like you were kind of in there, even if you might not have known exactly which way you were going.
Right. Well, and then once I
had a good sense of direction.
And then it was scary once I was like, I'm not going to fashion school. It was like, oh shit, because that's what I've always said that I wanted to do. That is what I want to do. And back in those days, but it's not like kind of like now where it is. I think it might be a little bit easier to get your foot in the door and in certain areas. But back then it was like, oh, you did need to have that degree to do the job I wanted to do. Now, mind you, I could have continued to work in retail and but it was like, oh, what am I going to do now?
So what did you do?
Well, so I partied in Atlanta.
Of course, Atlanta.
I partied in Atlanta. And then it was like, okay, I went to esthetician school. So, cause that was something else. I was in, the beauty industry. I was like, okay, I'll do this, but it still wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but I was interested enough to do it and did that. And once I was done, I was just like, I don't know. I just don't know if it's here for me anymore. Like, the city was changing, and Atlanta is a big part of my story. The city was changing a lot, and I was just kind of at that place where I didn't really know what to do. And my family had moved here. My, full disclosure, my family is in the entertainment industry. I never wanted to do it. I saw their hours. Nothing about it ever appealed to me at all. I used to visit set. I wanted nothing to do with it at all. And so I was like...
Did they get into it here, or they were already into it before here?
My great-grandmother, she was in the wardrobe union. She started one of the first wardrobe union in Ohio.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like 4th or 5th generation IATSE. And so my grandmother...
For the people out there, what's IATSE?
Oh, sorry. IATSE is the union that includes pretty much our hair, makeup, wardrobe, all Broadway, basically all of the below the line, all of the rest of the crew that makes a production happen.
Grips, gaffers,
lighting, electricians.
Drivers. Drivers are Teamsters.
Yeah, but it's a huge. We've got about 160,000 people in IATSE. That's like the biggest film union. But they were in it for Broadway.
Okay.
And like my grandparents used to dress, they did concerts. They used to be dressers, at shows like that. But again, I wanted nothing to do with that. I literally wanted to just be a buyer for Nordstrom. That's all I wanted to do. So my grandmother, she does hair. But they started in Ohio. And she had been doing hair for, I don't know, like 40 years at that point, and then got an opportunity. She got called. She knew somebody got called to come down and possibly work on Dawson's Creek in like 98, 99. And she moved down. And then my aunt moved down afterwards, started doing hair. Now that's the nepotism babies. That's not me.
Yeah.
And then my uncle ended up coming down, and he started off as a PA. And he's in the DGA now. Shout out to Bill Delaney.
Nice. Oh, he's a director?
He's a second AD.
Okay, nice.
And producer.
His name is familiar.
You probably
like when you
know
said
him.
it, when you said Bill Delaney, I was like, what?
You probably know
Sounds
him.
familiar.
He might be a first now. Sorry, Bill, if I don't know which one. But so they started in Ohio and then came down here. And then when I was just kind of at my point where I didn't really know what I was going to do, I was like, well, let me just temporarily just go to Wilmington. Temporarily. That was in 2000. I don't know. I was like 20 and came down here temporarily, just, worked a couple salons, a couple spas, still doing the esthetician thing. And then by that point that I got down here, my grandma and family were like on One Tree Hill. And again, I still wanted nothing to do with this. I'm working at like Hypnotics. I'm working at all the spas. And, but I did theater in high school. And one of the girls on One Tree Hill she came up with this like notebook adaptation that she was going to do at Thalian Hall. And by that, I'm interested more in makeup now because I've been, I thought my wardrobe dream was away from me. Okay. The costume, fashion, costume, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I'm in my full like beauty skincare bag at that era. So I'm like, oh, well, because my grandma was like, hey, Joy's doing this show at Thalian Hall. It's going to be, it was such a great experience. And it went on for about a month, just, the prep and all the shows and everything. But I started doing that as makeup. But you know how theater works, or I don't know if you've done any theater.
I have. I mean, it's been years now, but I started out in theater.
So it's been a really long time. But whenever you feel like you're missing something, go back to theater. Because I went into that just like wanted to just help out this makeup artist. And it was back to like doing something that I really liked to do. I loved theater. And I went back and I helped, but the way theater is it's all hands on deck. Yeah. It's not like, in film where it's,
this is my department, and you stay out of my department.
Yeah, and if somebody who's not in our department wants to be nosy and sees me helping you because I'm a nice person, they can file a grievance against you, you know? So it's like, was all hands on deck. So I started helping costumes a lot. So it's kind of going back and forth between the two, and it was just so much fun. Had a great time. The costume designer that was on that was the designer that was on Dawson's and One Tree Hill. She's a big costume designer. Again, was not looking at this as any kind of thing. I had no desire to be in film at all. And so I go back to my job at Gold's Gym. And that's my last normal person job was Gold's Gym. And about 2.5 years later, I get a phone call out of nowhere from some woman I had never met and asking to see. There was a Alec Baldwin film coming to town, and they needed a costume assistant, a costume PA, costume production assistant, and would I be interested? And I was like, absolutely. I never had any.
Hell out of Gold's Gym.
Give me the hell out of Gold's Gym. No offense, Gold's Gym. I had a great time working there. But so and then the rest is history from there.
Okay, so you do that project. How's it? What was it like? You step on there because you worked a little on the theater side.
And it was totally different.
Right, completely different ball game. You get in there. First of all, I don't know how it is from costuming perspective, but being a PA is not fun, typically.
No.
So I can only imagine it's similar.
Oh my God. It was horrible.
PAs catch all the shit.
Oh my God. They're the greatest, hardest workers. And they have to, especially a set PA. I don't know how the hell they do it because they've got to deal with all of us.
Actors, producers.
Oh my gosh.
And then you're so
the PA, seriously.
You work your ass off, but then you're also like so disposable. So you
man.
you always have that pressure on your back.
Can't sit. I mean, it's horrible. That job, that first day reminded me of the first day of fashion school. Mm-hmm. But I didn't quit.
So you made it past the first day. So that's good.
I, at that point, was like, I'm just going to make it through the week. And I don't know if I can do it. It was like not what I was expecting. But you never know what to expect. But it was horrible. It was.
So what kept you going? What kept you in it? Because eventually you became a costumer.
Man. It's a great question. That is a great question. Because that first day.
Was the money just that much better than working retail?
Well, you've got to think. The money of the grunt work of being a PA. Mm-hmm. And so a set PA and a costume PA are different. Because set PA is worse because you've got every department. Yeah. Costume PA is like just... Yeah. It's hard because I was really fortunate at the time that I was coming up. Now I can say I'm fortunate looking back. Mm. At the time, I was like, this is horrible. Why are they treating me like this? This is terrible.
It's intense.
It's like our base camp. Okay, so on a film set, base camp is where the vanities, we're called the vanities, which is hair, makeup, wardrobe. Mm-hmm. And the cast trailers, where the cast basically lives while they're there. So that's called base camp. And that's where hair, makeup, wardrobe, cast, and then there's the honey wagon, which is it's got rooms for like day player actors who are not our everyday actors.
The minions.
Work. Yeah, like they don't work every day. They're...
It's where we all start off.
They're the background. They're like like me being a costume PA.
Yeah, they're when you see the movies and you see someone like, you want fries with that, and that's the only time you see them. That's the day player.
Yeah. So we're all there, and that's called base camp. And so sometimes base camp is really spread out, and you can't get a van to get from point A to point B. Yeah. And my first day of being a costume PA was downtown, and base camp was at the riverfront, but crew parking was at the 3rd Street parking deck. And that's before I have been in this industry to know, like, hey, you need to get something. You're running in and out. Mm-hmm. Don't listen to me if you're starting. Don't do this if you're starting out. But I've been doing it long enough to where I'm like, listen, I need to drop these fucking chairs off. Can I cuss?
Yeah.
Okay,
have a ball.
I need to drop these fucking chairs off. I'm parking right over here, and I'm dropping them off really fast, and then I'm leaving. But then my first day, I didn't know. Mm-hmm. So I parked at crew parking. I barely knew how to get a transpo van. You've got to call a van to get to base camp. Which is where I needed to go to see what not my colleagues at that time, what my higher ups, my bosses needed, because my job as a costume PA is to get whatever's needed. That might be coffee one day. That might be this day. It was stools. Mm-hmm. And so I go in there and they tell me all the measurements that I needed to get. And like, this is how like this. I'm like, has nothing to do with clothes. And it all makes sense in the end. But at the time, I'm like, what the hell? So like, it's pouring, raining that day. I don't know that I can just drive up, and you're not supposed to drive up and just park my car when I get this. So I lug these for like 3 blocks. I lug these, all of the stools back to base camp, and I'm covered. I mean, literally, I'm drenched, and I was just like, I'm never doing this. I'm going to do this job. I'm never doing this again. And I don't know. I think because I stayed then for the next day. Mm-hmm. And, not that the next day got any better, but it was just like, I'm kind of a person who likes challenges. Mm-hmm. And even though it was something that was, and because it's like as soon as I dropped the chairs off and walked in the ring, it's like, okay, now we need you to run back to Walmart and get whatever. And I mean, it was like, it's a lot of grunt work. But it's really needed.
Yeah.
It really, really is needed.
Yeah, definitely. So you do the grunt work for a while. You become a costumer. Is there a favorite, as we start to wind down, I want to know.
Oh gosh.
What, if there's a favorite show out of all of them, or project that you've done where you're like, this is my all-time favorite experience.
Okay, so
as a costumer though.
As a costumer, Underground Railroad with Barry Jenkins.
Nice.
Hardest show I've ever done emotionally.
I can imagine.
And I do a lot of.
Anthony Hemingway worked on that one too, right?
Yeah, I do a lot.
Shout out to Anthony Hemingway.
Yeah, I do a lot of shows in that period. But that one in particular was really, really, really hard. Yeah. And it's also like one of my least favorite shows. But the reason that it's my favorite as a costumer on that is because to work with someone like Barry and the work that we're doing is so important. Right. That it doesn't feel gratuitous. It doesn't feel exploitive. You really feel like you're creating art. As hard as it may be in those moments. And you just knew that you were creating something special. Yeah. But
and there's projects like that where because I've worked on projects where it's like, oh, this is just fun, like we're just having a good time, and then there's projects where it's like it's intense because it's so important. Like, have to get this right. This is important.
I mean, and
topics.
We're really on the land, and the way he wrote the scripts, and it was so important, and it was just a feeling. Yeah. To, back to I'm just like my feelings, but it was just a feeling of like we're really, really doing something special here, and to watch someone like him, I will literally. I was a fan of his before, and it's always like never meet people you love. Yeah. He was above and beyond because you just really, as hard as it was, he created such a safe environment. And you just felt like you were creating art, which in these days it's really hard to feel like
so
because
now.
It's all so corporate. It's so corporate. So that was, I would probably say, Underground Railroad, Amazon Prime. Barry Jenkins. It's a hard.
I've watched.
Yeah, it's a hard watch, and
it was a hard
read.
It's shot very well,
and it's beautiful, and it was amazing for so many reasons.
I've worked with Anthony, but I've met everybody, it seems, but I've never met Barry.
And he's the coolest guy.
And he's somebody like bucket list that I do want to work with.
Unbelievable. Just, he had a grief counselor on set. He thought of they thought of everything. Yeah. And just, the color palettes. It's just, you felt like you're creating art. And it's been a really long time since I felt like I was doing something that was artistic, because it is so corporate now. It's like, oh, okay, just order it off Amazon. Yeah.
So what made you make that transition from costumer to buyer? Well, full circle. Now you've made it to being a buyer.
I, pretty early on, maybe about 2 years after being a PA, I moved a little faster, just because I wasn't afraid. You're young, you're not afraid of anything. So there was a Nicholas Sparks, back when he used to do the movies, there was a Nicholas Sparks film that needed a buyer. And I, at that point, had only been a PA, but I had a really great supervisor that would bump me up. So on big days where we had big like background days where they needed help dressing people, she would bump me up. So I got my experience that way. So I got a lot of costume experience while I was being a PA. And it just so happened that the main buyer in town, he was on something else, and he recommended me for Safe Haven, this Nicholas Sparks movie in Southport. And so I did that, and I loved it. And I was like, this is what I
You found your spot.
Yeah, I'm like, not just because again, it's not just shopping all day. That's a whole other hour conversation. It's, but I was like, this is more of what.
I want to stick there for a real quick second, because you're right. I want to drive that point home about it not being just going out and shopping. Like, you're literally, the person with the vision is not out there with you. So you meet, they talk, you put everything down. This is what I'm going for. And then you've got to go out. You can literally screw the whole timeline up.
Don't forget when we don't have sizes. And it works tomorrow at 4 a.m.
Right.
And the stores close at 7 p.m.
And you've got to bring back the look. You can't just go out there and be like, I don't see exactly what they want. So, I'm not finding this design in green. I'll grab this light blue. It's close to the same design. Screws the whole thing up.
Whole thing.
So that's a super important job.
It's really important.
And a lot of trust.
A lot of trust. And there are designers who don't relinquish their full trust. And I get that. The only problem is when it's like at Independence Mall where there's no service. And it's like, I know you're doing like a million other things. And it's like, you do have to have some kind of trust. Yeah. There does have to be a little bit of trust. But I understand that because, not everybody gets how important, like if a designer's like, these are the colors. And I want to I will go to the ends of the earth to get whatever. And until I'm like, okay, I've went everywhere, I've checked everywhere. Hey, it's not here. And shopping in Wilmington is not easy.
No, not at all.
But I like the challenge because it actually can happen.
Yeah. I actually
a lot.
I worked on the show here, Hightown.
Oh yeah, I worked on that a little briefly.
Yeah, so I literally had to tell the costume designer. They were all doing a great job, but they were like, man, we are really struggling to find like kind of some of the looks for you and several others that we really want.
And then people don't want to look.
Yeah, well, they were just like, it's Wilmington.
It is Wilmington.
So you don't have as many options as they're coming out of New York and LA.
Yeah, well,
where you could just go everywhere. But I literally had to tell them like, hey, here's some shops that I go to or you can order from in LA and stuff that I get cool stuff. And they're like, thank God, thank you. And they did order some stuff. They didn't have a buyer? They did, but it was just to save time instead of like good luck figuring all that out. But I think coming to Wilmington
part of being a buyer is
part
of being a buyer though is knowing, hey, is this realistic or not? And that also comes with the confidence of doing the job of being able to say to a designer, I'm going to go out and I'm going to look for as much as usually sometimes you have to start the day with online orders.
Yeah.
Just to cover yourself. But there are some things that are like, whether it's in the script or whether it's something the designer really wants. If it's not here and when you've been doing it long enough, I'm always going to look because you never know.
Yeah.
But there are some, that is part of the job too, is being able to be confident enough to be, look, it's not,
Yeah. Well, this is also around the time
they go from New York.
COVID. So COVID, they shot season 1 in New York. So they're coming out of New York. And then it's like last minute because of COVID was like, we're going to move to Wilmington. And then they get to Wilmington and it's like, we got this big 6'5" actor that we got to find cool clothes for in Wilmington.
And that's an online.
It ended up online.
That's an online. And, we do a lot of Raleigh trips. But it's the other thing about it, not just the design. You're not just buying like, just what the designer, just like the designer's not just designing what they want to design.
Right.
There's a director, producers, the studio. There's a million people. Oh, and then we've got the actors who they might not want to wear yellow or what. It turns into there's a lot of people that have to be pleased, and so
there were some actors who are like, I'm not wearing this.
Yes.
I've always tried not to be that actor. There's only one time in my entire career. Now, there's been times I looked down and was pissed at what I was wearing, but I was like, this is the character. It's not me.
Now sometimes I understand, but Yes, it happened.
And I've only done it one time in my career, and that was because it was a living person, a real situation, and in real life, the color of the jumpsuit was orange. And they were trying to put me in. No, I'm sorry. They were trying to put me in orange, and the color in real life was actually blue. And there's so much evidence for people to go Google and see it.
Like,
so I was like, we got to do blue.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I was.
So that's the thing. It's like the thing about it is not every actor is like, I'm not wearing that. It's not always a diva thing.
Yeah.
It's really not. There's one time I'm thinking of in particular, and it's just because this person was a cop. Mm-hmm. And they were mad they were in a cop outfit. So I was like, but there's, you've got to think about the colors of the walls, so, and what the other actors are wearing. Because
a lot of people don't know there's a color palette.
There's a color palette.
So when you see on screen, the colors have been decided. When you see the furniture, what the curtains look like, all that's part of a color palette.
Yeah, and then so one color, like an outfit might get approved for this guy and it's blue, and then we finally find the right thing for the actress and it happens to be blue. And then you walk in and then the walls are blue, and it's just like, you want to try to avoid any of that kind of thing.
The DP is like, what the hell is this? Like,
and then it's like, oh gosh. This? So it's like, and then multiples. God, I could go on for days. You also, when I go out and I buy stuff for a show, I'm not buying one. You can never buy one.
Right.
If you have one, you have none.
Yeah.
And which sucks a lot of times because, most of the time because of the really cool things you find that are
unique,
vintage or unique. They only come in one, unless your designer's passionate about it and you've got a shop that they can rebuild it. But a lot of times we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But so I find the greatest shirt of all time, but so and so's getting killed in it. I need 15 of those shirts.
Yep.
And so it's not as easy. It's honestly harder. I'm not going to say that because my costumer friends will kill me. Set costumer friends. But it is not as easy. Once you get on set and it's established, we're maintaining, the dirt, blood, whatever continuity. But, when you're buying, you're not only buying for, like, if it's episodic, the next episode, for fittings that are tomorrow, for, so-and-so's shirt just ripped or necklace just broke, or this doesn't fit now. We need you to actually go buy something new right now. So it's like all those things a lot of times are happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's just, I always tell people, come to set one day. Just see how everything works. But every time people think like, oh, well, I would be in the costume department. Like, not saying that you don't.
Go experience it first.
Come be on set and, be in the mud and the dirt and, or come shop with me and see. It's like,
yeah, it can be rough.
Your designer picked something and has been discontinued for 2 years and she's dead set on that shirt.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, I did a show where we had to wear Coogee sweaters.
In the summer?
Had been discontinued since the 90s. And they spent the bread, though. They literally talked with Coogee because they couldn't do the designs.
Well, and that's the
thing. So they literally had to talk with Coogee and convince Coogee and pay them to recreate those designs. And so that was actually Coogee.
And that's the problem with, like, where we are right now with film as a whole and, like, with the strikes. It all boils down to money.
Yeah.
They don't want to spend the money in any of our departments.
Yeah.
Whether it's for manpower, supplies, or rate.
Changed.
It is drastically changed.
It used to be a blank card.
Oh, my
gosh.
Go
get whatever you need for the show. Now it's like, why do you need that many shirts?
Yeah, and it's like, are you serious? Jenny gets killed and gets killed by Leatherface, and we've got 2 photo doubles that are different sizes. We've got a stunt double.
And
we've got the actual actor.
Is all the creatives, they just...
Yeah, and it's like,
no.
And it's, so it's just, they kind of have stripped a lot of different things because it's like either... But then you don't want to give us the manpower. Okay, we can do it creatively and not go by that. Mm-hmm. But we need more manpower. So,
So in closing, I do want to get into that from you guys' perspective. We've had producers, directors, etc. on here, actors, myself, talking about the strike and our purview of that. We haven't heard from on our show. We haven't heard from anyone that's out of IATSE or in part of the costuming department. What do you feel about the strike? Necessary, unnecessary? Do you think it's going to be helpful? And what's the word on the ground from your side of things?
I find it to be hugely, hugely beneficial, and I couldn't be more proud that both unions did it, honestly. Again, IATSE, we all voted 99% of us.
What is IATSE waiting on to jump in this thing?
Well, our contract negotiations.
Oh, you guys aren't up yet.
We were in 2021. 99% of us voted to go on strike.
They
we literally packed up all our stuff at work. We thought it was a done deal.
So you guys can't strike.
Then there is exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
So we are up for negotiations next year. So a lot of things I've heard, people think that this is hugely beneficial because what happens here could help us.
Yeah. Because people are thinking of the actors and writers, but when we can't work, that means you guys aren't working.
And I think that it's a very detrimental that IATSE hasn't been mentioned, because I think that the public could get I just think there could be a better grip on how many people not only go into making these projects happen.
Yeah. Do you think it's a thing of between the unions, the union heads, of a little saltiness that IATSE took that deal that they did?
Probably.
Back then,
IATSE
don't come over here in our party now, IATSE.
Well, yeah, and honestly, I don't blame them, because, and that's the thing, it's because, I feel the same way with my union, and every time someone asks me, what do you think about the writers? I'm like, I think it's great. I wish we all wish that we would have done it,
It was needed, but
it was
I even say with my union, SAG, that this should have been done 5 years ago.
This should have been done for us. The stuff we're asking for is literally 12 hours on, 12 hours off, proper turnarounds, proper lunch breaks.
Oh my God, the turnarounds have gotten crazy for you guys.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
For those of you that don't know, turnarounds are just you go to work a certain amount of time, you get off, you're supposed to be allotted a certain amount of time to rest and recover before before the project is allowed to have you come back to work.
Right.
And those turnarounds have shrank.
And so with costumes, hair and makeup, our call time, which is when we have to be at work, is usually at least, depending on the show, at least an hour. Sometimes if it's a period historical show, we're 3 hours ahead of the rest of the crew.
Yeah.
So if the crew call for the rest of the crew is noon, and it's, let's say, a period show that's set in 1853, I have to be there sometimes at 6 o'clock, sometimes at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And
we as actors, I come in, I work 10 hours. You guys are there at least 2 hours
before and after.
And after. And I literally seen people many times, especially in the most recent years, people we're working late, get off at 4 a.m.
Yep.
And then come back to work, and it's we've had our turnaround and come back to work, and it's hey man, did you get some rest?
No.
Yeah, 3 hours.
Yeah, because because it was 9. Our great deal, our great contract that they signed for us was 10 hours instead of the 9 hours, which is nothing, because I'm not a mathematician, but I usually what's happened now is because they know that they can take you into that point.
Yeah.
And it's we'll take your turnaround. Okay, well, if it's going to fuck our day up, that 20 minutes of me, if it's only 20 minutes and it's not that heavy of a day, we'll figure it out. But they've put it where you're not going to take a proper turnaround. And if you do, we're behind. The day's behind, because it's I'm getting off work at 9 p.m. and they start there's times where I'm walking to my car and I'm into my turnaround. Jeez. And so by the time I get home, no matter, wherever you are, and, they've changed the distance situation, where you used to be, if you were an hour away, you got put up, or you got an extra time added, all of that's changed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Fraturdays, don't get me started on that. That's going to work at 3 p.m. on Friday and coming home at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. And then what Saturday do you have? What Sunday do you, Yeah. So, but it's just.
And then you're working your ass off already, so you're exhausted for that time. So you do nothing, and then you turn around, it's time to go back to work.
Yeah.
And do it all over again.
And it's like, film's always been a thing with crazy hours, but in the recent years, it's became
the corporate squeeze.
The corporate squeeze
get
is a
more
different,
out of it.
Yeah. And we're not creating better art with it.
Right. It's just turning more into a factory.
Yeah, totally.
Churning shit out.
Totally.
Because I don't have those same experiences as you, but one of the things, I had to start calling around other known actors, like, hey, because I felt like, I'm not Will Smith, but I'm far from the bottom. I've done some big shit.
Yeah.
And still doing shit and on a show right now and the whole nine. And getting offers to do like big shows and big roles, either co-starring or, above line shit. And still being like, yeah, but you got to agree to work local. And that started becoming a trend.
They're doing that with us,
that
too.
was like, wait a minute. Like, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not some newbie. Like, why do they, for main big roles, they keep telling me I have to work local, which means you have to fly yourself to wherever you're shooting.
Pay out of pocket.
And you
housing.
have to put yourself up or find somebody to stay with. The whole time you're shooting, you can be one of the stars of the show.
For like a 6-month show.
Right.
For
so you're basically paying what you're getting paid if it's good enough, because they have pushed this down to scale as much as possible.
Yep.
To the point where I started telling my agent, no, I turned down like 4 big projects in a row and all offering scale and work local. And I'm like, dude, I'm so far away from that.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And that's why it's like, I feel like the messaging could be more effective. I mean, I don't know if the average person cares, but the messaging could be more effective where it's like, not just film, it's this kind of thing trickles down to everybody.
Yeah.
If when corporations are allowed to get away with doing stuff like this, but in film, actors, writer, I couldn't believe when I heard that your union, that the writers, that we're all really dealing with the same thing. I mean, we've all been just thinking it was just crew. And it's crazy because it's like, no, I'm not going to a place that I should be getting paid a distant higher rate for.
Exactly. And you've got the money.
You have the money. I know you have the money to do it.
You got the Bob Iger's making $450 million.
You had it 12 years ago.
Right.
But now you don't have it.
And you're making more money
and
now
than
12 years ago.
Now. And that's the other thing people need to know is they are all these streaming companies especially are working off of the old original
new media.
Old original contracts. When Netflix first came into play, I would refuse to call them a studio. But when like Netflix and Hulu and all those places.
And for context, real quick, back then when it first started, no one really knew where it was going to go.
Yeah, it was kind
so
of like
indie world. Indie world. Like, we'll do a little contract.
Yeah.
So you're not making a lot of money.
So it's like, I'll do a Netflix show because know what.
Now they're making billions.
Yeah. And then
we're still under.
And they're like actually coming at us like with less. I'm like.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole distant, higher, local thing is a trip.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
amongst other things, but that one it's crazy. It's like, okay, so you guys don't have a deal with the hotel, or like it used to be so.
Spend the goddamn money.
It used to be so different,
right? And
it's a write-off for them.
Exactly, but it's about shareholders.
It is.
It's about the upper brass getting bigger bonuses.
It's crazy,
and all but across other industries.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing. And that's why I'm like, this is a labor issue that doesn't just affect film. Like, it's literally...
It's
and then
a trend
let's put the
industries.
AI part into it.
Yeah, you add AI.
And so, you can't allow it to happen in one industry without it trickling into others. Because there's monopolies on all of these companies. So,
exactly.
What Disney owns here, they own... many other things.
Yeah. Well, we could talk all week
oh my God.
about these things. Thank you for a great interview and being insightful and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you. I hope I was.
No, you definitely were. You got a little vulnerable there. I appreciate that.
Gosh, I had to go back to the Christian school. And the school we will not speak of.
So maybe one day we'll have to do a part 2. We've enjoyed having her.
Thanks for having me.
Most definitely, you're very welcome to be here. And but like all things, all good things must unfortunately come to an end.
Like the strike.
Hopefully, we'll. I don't know what.
Only if deals are done. Only if deals are done.
Yeah. So we're hoping for the best, and we're gonna keep talking to people that are in the industry. And I mean, hence the REEL, Real Talk. We'd like to focus on people that are some way attached to this industry or have the experience to do it. And now we finally got to talk to someone from the wardrobe side. And, thank you for taking us on that trip and breaking down, how a lot of these different things work.
No problem. It's so much, it's hard to do.
Yeah, it's
I hope I was able
more,
to get
yeah, so you got a gist of it, but it's way more intricate what they do, on these film sets. And, without you guys, I mean, hell, we'd have nothing to wear.
That's the thing.
We'd have nothing to wear and, leave it up to, producers and stuff. We got to just throw that shit on. So
yeah.
it's these folks that make sure we go out there and fit the part and look good doing it. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And, we love and appreciate you guys. If you're listening to us on podcasts, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And hey, if you like what you're seeing and hearing, make sure you let some friends know and pass this along to your family. Put your kids on, whatever. Let the dogs watch. You know what I mean? Just make sure you like, subscribe, and share so we can keep spreading this good word and doing more of these shows for you guys. Hope you picked up a lot of gems and jewels along the way. If you're thinking about jumping in this business, watch all the videos. You'll get to learn how it's going down. Although with the strikes going on right now, people might be rethinking like, whoa.
I don't know about that one.
So, but until next time, I'm signing off. Thank you, Whitney Delaney.
Thank you for having me.
And we shall see you on the next episode of Real Talk. I had to do the Quiet Storm voice. All right, everyone.
Zombieland, your presence was quiet in Zombieland. So welcome to Zombieland. These zombies is always a part of their grave. Walking around, fronting and stunting redundant, but looking real lame. Nobody believing you, people deceiving you, leading you on with this nonsense. Hate me to dime off your dreaming, you already dead and it's only your conscience.